My name is Cliff Duffey. March 27th was it was a very normal day. It took a turn when I got a call from my wife. She had just found out that there was a shooting event, our daughter's school and son's. We didn't know anything else at the time. It was less than a year after Uvalde. I jumped in the car and that was just like seconds. I got there early enough where there were still police coming in. So there was a few minutes just wondering, is this a big event? Then I started seeing one class at a time coming down the hill. I saw my son's class and immediately felt, okay, great, there's Chase. Once I saw him, I called Jennifer. She at least had seen Sutton by then, told me Sutton was okay. She still didn't know, the full context of what happened. He had other parents around her who were asking about the kids, so we did a quick count of all the 5th and 6th graders, had everyone accounted for, but at least knowing that our children were safe, it was a huge relief. For me personally, I had another responsibility on that day that was a challenge in that the board of directors for the school, and at that time I was the only board member on site. So once I knew the family was safe, I immediately had to shift into the gear of, okay, well now what do we do? Okay, where's our headmaster? Is everyone else okay? I started talking to the staff and got a bit of an update on what had happened, which, okay, now this is sounding a bit scarier. So I stayed there on the scene for probably another hour, just trying to figure out. Sorry. And that was the first moment that I found out that there really were there were casualties. After that, I knew everyone was gathering at, I think it was Woodmont Christian. I went there to find Jennifer and Sutton and Chase. And when I got there, they brought me in where Jennifer was already there with Sutton. They were there with a police counselor who told me, hey, just so you know, this is pretty serious, and your daughter was, pretty close to what happened. But it was very hard for me to have a context of, well, what does that mean? Crazy that something like this could happen. Seeing her and seeing Chase again and knowing they're safe, I mean, that just gave me the comfort that, okay, at least this problem is solved. I know there's more, just important to know my family was safe. Then had to shift back into my gear of, okay, well now what do we do? If Catherine isn't here, we don't have our headmaster, someone's got to kind of step up. This is not a public school with a lot of government resources behind it. We were a small private Christian school, a small staff and a small board who's not equipped for something like this. I and others felt very compelled to help the team manage through this. I'm glad I didn't have to share the news. A guy named Matt Musso, who was president of the board at that time, he had to stand up and tell everyone the full list of casualties. I think that's when I could see this whole event became real for hundreds of people, not just the ones in the room, but I mean, that was the point at which it was official, where every family, every member of the staff, there were media all around. This is the point where everyone knew, what really had happened, how everyone's life just changed right in that moment. For me, the trauma of that day was hard, but it's more been the aftermath. How do we get school back? There were 6 weeks left in the school year when this happened, and the thought of the kids not being able to go back to school and at least finish part of the year, we all came together and did everything we could and managed to figure out a way. It meant, for me, stuffing a lot of my feelings, focusing on, okay, I got to put my effort into something else. I had to come back and feel my feels later. It really was a life-altering event. I'm surprised just at how isolating it felt. We were a small community in this school, but even what we were going through in our experience was different than what the teachers went through, different than what the parents who lost a child were going through. The first responders, all of us had very different experiences. Talking to friends and family who weren't part of this at all, I mean, it was hard for them to comprehend at all. It just became difficult to connect, especially with an event like this. How much do we share? What especially our daughter went through, it's horrifying. I shared that with a few friends who told me later that they wished that I hadn't. Some people who tried to tell me that I've been through different traumas and I totally understand where you're coming from and how you feel. When I'm at my low point and feeling hard to connect with people, that's hard to hear. But on the flip side, when I did talk to people who listened and asked and wanted to hear how I was feeling and what I experienced, that was very meaningful. I was surprised how many people outside even our close community cared and how much people did to try to help us. Talking with the others who were in the Covenant School shooting, we were all feeling the same pains. We were all going through this at the same time, so we couldn't really offer each other hope. Getting more connection to others who've been through similar mass shootings, that had the biggest impact on me, and I think it's a really important part of healing and recovery. We had visitors from Sandy Hook come, even talking with people who'd been in the Las Vegas shooting, hearing what they'd been through, the ups and the downs, it gave me hope. And we as a family have been through a lot of therapy, but we've also come a long way. Proud of both my son and daughter for coming through this and growing through this as they have.